Martha Blessing, and you're about to start transforming your life and creating the freedom that you desire with this podcast. For over 15 years, I've coached and mentored conscious creators on 4 continents around the world. Here, you won't find a bunch of hype or super inflated rah-rah motivation, because this podcast is a combination of brain science, universal spiritual laws, and ancient wisdom and spiritual teachings, all rolled into one to take your life to levels you've never dared to imagine were possible. If you're wanting more from life, to feel better, to heal, to have a peaceful mind, to feel empowered and alive, and to bring more abundance and prosperity into your life, then this podcast is for you. Because you're going to start learning how to master your mind, expand and grow your consciousness, and when you do that, you can create the place to be free, and anything you want then becomes possible for you. I'm so glad you're here. Hi, and welcome to this episode of the Place to Be Free podcast. In this episode, I am going to be talking about and discussing and sharing with you information about an energetic shift that I have been noticing not only in my own life, but with coaching clients, and how, number one, it's going to affect the nature of this podcast moving forward, and really in relation to my efforts to serve you and serve the community and listeners, as well as the shift in our global consciousness, our collective consciousness. And it's the shift that we're going through right now, but also it's a shift in the recalibration of our energies collectively. So I'm sharing with you some of the insights that have come out of my stillness and meditation practices over the last, really it's been 2 years, but more recently the last, I would say probably 6 months, and also working with clients over the last 2 years, and really since the pandemic started, right? Because we've been processing a lot. So let's dig right in. If you have been listening to the podcast and you've heard previous episodes since it started, really it is still in its infancy. And I had a vision for several years before I actually started the podcast. And it's having a complete evolution based on that since I started it. And I started it because I was inspired to help teach the principles of universal laws and bring them forward because they were game changers in my life. I had felt that really there was this great big missing piece, and I was doing all of the things that, they say to do, and reading all the books and, just taking every possible step and thinking that I was doing everything right. And then why was I still stuck in the same place? I was missing a piece, and it was the subconscious mind reprogramming and the intermingling, the commingling of the reprogramming the subconscious mind, along with learning and using the universal laws, which universal laws are really spiritual laws that guide the universe. They are active in the universe, and it doesn't matter whether you're aware of them or not. You are still being influenced by them. It's like the laws of gravity. I've mentioned this before in the podcast, that we are all subject to the influence of the law of gravity. It doesn't play favorites. And if I go out and, climb on my roof and jump off, I am going to hit the ground. That is the law of gravity. And so whether I understand them or not, they are going to affect me. And this is how the universal spiritual laws are. So they are how the universe works. And if we do not, and I'm not just talking about manifesting in the law of attraction, I'm talking about all of the universal laws, spiritual laws, and I'll be going deeper and deeper into more of them and how to apply them, and also the reprogramming, repatterning of the subconscious mind. But what it has to do with the shift and the change is what I've been noticing and what's going on. I've been doing this work for almost 30 years, 29 years, as a healer and a soul seer, and what I call a sorcerer, and that is coming to the source and the field of intelligent substance and consciousness to take action and create what it is we want for ourselves from that place. And so for several years, many years, several decades, my work has been as a healer and a soul seer and being able to guide people. And that was really only meant to be for a certain and specific amount of time. Because right now we are going through a real evolution, and there needs to be a change in how I am teaching and working to help advance those who are ready to advance collectively on the planet. So my work for those many years was about being a medical medium and a medical intuitive, and being able to see the mental, emotional, and spiritual causes of physical ailments. I think part of that is probably the fact that I was a nurse for so many years, but I was first and foremost from a young age a seer and an intuitive and a medium. So spirit, God, source, whatever you call it, would have me marry all of those gifts and into the world of the physical healing, right? The ailments. And what has really come through in the last couple of years, almost 2 years, is taking a look at the fact it's so many things are coming to the forefront, right? In so many of our institutions that are not serving us and not functioning well. One of those is obviously healthcare. People would come to me for help with these chronic illnesses, with chronic illness and pain, when they had exhausted every other resource. They were really at their last straw. They had tried everything, and they were, quite honestly, desperate. Well, if you've listened to any of the episodes previous to this one, and I talk about the law of cause and effect, we cannot create anything beneficial if we're coming to it from a place of desperation, because that's a frequency and a vibration of fear, right? So how on earth are we going to create health and well-being from this place? And as we can see, it does not work. Western medicine is not changing. People are not healing. And it's because they're coming to try to find a solution from a place of desperation and fear. And now that is even being transferred into the holistic arena, alternative medicine, functional medicine, right? Like they're all focused on the idea that the body does not know how to be healthy, or trying to avoid a fearful situation. So for quite some time now, I have known that there needed to be a shift for myself and my work, and for the clients that I serve and will serve and do serve. There has actually been, I've had some resistance to this paradigm shift. And now that we have begun to come through this pandemic, what I recognize is that it's time to bring that change into shifting forward in what happens here on the podcast. And what do I mean by that specifically? Well, I managed to make it almost 2 years without getting COVID. And then in January, with this Omicron variant, I got COVID. And that's when it became very, very clear to me, something that I had suspected and had been doing some channeling, that there was more going on with this virus than meets the eye. Now, some people will, I think everybody kind of feels that way. Maybe some don't. Maybe they think it's just a virus. But we've all kind of, people that I know have all suspected, like they've asked the question, like, there's something bigger going on here. What is going on? And I'm not talking about, this isn't an opportunity to get into conspiracy theories or politics or anything else like that. Looking at it from an esoteric, metaphysical, meta meaning beyond, right? So beyond the physical, the esoteric and metaphysical aspects of it, and from the field of intelligent substance. What I witnessed when I had COVID was, and I was still in meditation and stillness every day when I had, 3 days I didn't. It was about a month that it took me to move through it. There were about 3 days that I didn't do my stillness and meditation, but I observed the shift of energies and frequencies within myself and how they were correlating with what was going on in my own life and in my community, and even on a global level. There was a shift that I was witnessing, and it really was quite profound. I have to say that there are two distinct and specific insights that have come out of that time and that experience. I'm going to explain both of them to you. The first is that I channeled a new, what is a soul light hologram. That came from intelligent substance just prior to getting COVID, and then it was clarified to me during the time that I had COVID. If you're not familiar with my work, or you're not familiar with these soul light healing holograms, I will go deeper into that a little bit further down here in the podcast, and I'll explain what I'm talking about. But I received a new healing hologram, and it also became very clear to me that how we are going to create transformations within ourselves moving forward, really deep transformations within our being, so that it can translate into the outward manifestation in our lives, whether it's relationships or work or career or physical healing. There is a need for us to no longer put our focus on the problem. And that sounds kind of strange, but it's so very, very clear to me that this is where we are staying stuck. We are focusing, putting our attention on the problem. So we will no longer create really true lasting transformations by focusing and putting our attention on the problem itself, on the illness itself, which this is what people have come to me for years. They will come for a symptom, but then I get at the mental, emotional, and spiritual causes, right? For a lot of clients who would come to me, they're seeking these solutions to ailments and physical disease in the body. Could be anything from digestive to anxiety, really any kind of physical ailment. What became very clear to me is that this approach now with the podcast has to change, and I will no longer have as much focus on illness and healing ailments, because that is keeping the energy stuck on focusing on the problem and not creating a resonance and coherence to the solution, which is already somewhere else in the field of intelligent substance. Okay, I know that's a mouthful and a mindful, right, to wrap around. So what do I mean by that? When we look at Western medicine, we have science, right? We have medications and surgeries, even herbal remedies, holistic remedies, energy healing, alternative therapies. They are not producing results. When we really look at this, they are not producing results. They're not creating long-term transformation for people's well-being. Now, why is that? Think about it. 90% of the people come to me, tell me that they've tried all these solutions and they focus their attention on the symptoms of the problem. They get better for a little while, but there was only a small amount of improvement and it doesn't last. There is not a full 100% transformation. Here's why. We don't create transformation by trying to fix what appears to be broken. I'm going to say it again. We don't create transformation. We do not transform energy, which is what illness is. Everything is energy. We do not create transformation by trying to fix what appears to be broken. We create transformation by standing in our light, standing in our authenticity and our true self and our true essence. And when we come to be in that place, and we create from that place, when we acknowledge that we are a part of the bigger picture, that we are consciousness and consciousness is us, we remove the vibration because we are being our higher self. We are being the essence of who we really are that is within us and within the universe. And the illness goes away because it does not need to be any longer. Are you with me here? Is that making sense? So what we've been doing all this time is following a paradigm of focusing on the problem, and it's keeping us stuck in the problem. It's keeping us stuck in all of the holistics, all of the medicine that isn't working, versus let me go to who am I without this? What is the frequency of that? So healing, transformation is less about going after and attacking the illness. It's more about stepping into who we truly are, living as our soul self, our soul destiny. And when we stop rejecting our greatness, when we stop rejecting ourselves, our body, our energy, and our frequency, our internal frequency changes, becomes into alignment with intelligent substance, with the field where everything we want is created there. And intelligent substance does not know pain and illness and suffering. It also doesn't know space and time. If you haven't already, you want to listen to episode 15, to the last episode, about where I talk about collapsing time and really what is time. Because we think that healing has to take a long time, and it doesn't. It can happen in a nanosecond. And it doesn't matter what you're healing. It doesn't matter what the transformation is that you want to have happen. So what's been happening with this COVID virus, what I observed is that during this time, there was a literal recalibration of DNA. I could see it and I could feel it in my body. And yeah, the symptoms can definitely be uncomfortable for a few days. Now, I'm not going to say that I have all the answers about COVIDs and viruses and all of that. This is my witnessing and my observation from the field and from within myself. But no mistake, there was a definite, and also from my friends that have had it, COVID and what they have reported and told me, and the changes and the shifts that have happened and what's come out of this virus. So it was only about a month that I could feel and experience this recalibration. And I literally was not myself during that time. Like, I just was not myself. And I came out of it as a new person, as a different person, because of this shift in the DNA. And I don't consider it to be a negative and a bad thing. I see it as a positive recalibration. And I felt as though my DNA had completely been reprogrammed to this higher version of myself, to a higher frequency that is more in alignment with my sovereignty and living as a sovereign being. And I will mention that I have not gotten the vaccination. So I'm sure some of you listening may be wondering, but I was fully 100% present with it and, moved through it and did not have the vaccination. So I cannot say that this perception of the reprogramming of my DNA had anything to do with whatever people are saying is in the vaccine. It wasn't without some resistance from my subconscious mind, right? I'm so used to living in a particular way. And collectively, we are so used to living in this dysfunctional egoic pattern that it really takes an entire recalibration and this downtime with this virus, in this virus. And that's what I noticed. My solar plexus and my digestion went through a metamorphosis. And I've never really had any kind of digestive problems ever. But it was fascinating to observe and witness as I step into this higher and higher place of living as a sovereign being. And so many people are doing this now as a result of this. We're looking at our self-esteem, our self-worth, and our power center. And I do believe that it is going to whatever area is looking for a recalibration, because there is such a broad range of symptoms. It's going to weak spots. It's going to places where people and individuals where there's an opportunity for a reprogramming and a recalibration of our DNA and a shift to our higher state of being and functioning. So I wanted to put that out to have you, consider that in your reality of what are the changes if you're going through this, what are the changes in the positive, what's been happening. It's not necessarily that we have to be in fear about it. I'm not going to spend a whole lot more time on this. There have been many, many aspects and sides to this that I have observed within myself and within clients in the last 2 years. And I may go into some of those in some upcoming podcasts, but I wanted to share this piece with you and the idea of the direction of where things will be shifting and moving into the topics and things that I cover on the podcast. And while I used to focus more on illnesses and medicine and things like that, and helping people with physical ailments, it's been really clear to me for quite some time that I need to shift that attention and that focus to no longer put attention on fixing what's wrong, because it's not working. It's not working. When we look at everything that we've moved through here in the States anyway, for the last few years, you can talk about the science, but quite honestly, they don't have answers about the vaccines, the boosters, they really truly don't have answers. And I think we need to take a look at the bigger picture of what's going on and the recalibration of energies, because it's happening. Let me also say that I don't want to minimize anyone who has lost a loved one or experienced death as a result of this virus. I lost my mom early on. The grief and sadness was horrific, not being able to be there with her. It affected my entire family early on when it first came to New York and New Jersey. So I don't mean in any way to minimize the effects that anyone has gone through of losing a loved one. But I do firmly feel that there is something bigger going on, and it's not about conspiracy theories and politics. I think that's just sort of a cover, right? A distraction. Consider this idea of your body recalibrating, your DNA recalibrating. And we are doing that as a culture and a species, really, at this point in time. And moving forward, you will hear a shift in what I'm going to be talking about in the nature of the podcast. And I'm going to be bringing forward more episodes more frequently, and the direction will be less focused on ailments and disease and symptoms and health and wellness, more into how do we transform into who it is that we came here to be, our soul destiny. How do we create an internal shift in our energy and our beliefs and our frequencies to align with the good that is everywhere in the world? It has just become very, very clear to me that I can no longer be a part of the old programming and the old paradigm. And I can't participate in it because it does not serve myself. It does not serve you. It does not serve the listeners. And it doesn't serve my clients. So the next thing I want to talk about is the most recent of the holograms, the soul light healing holograms that was sent to me, channeled to me through Grace and through the guides that I work with. And it's the first, there's actually 2 new holograms that have come through to me. And I will be recording all of the holograms and these 2 new ones, bringing them to life, so to speak, as a guided experience for listeners. They will be available on the website. I am going through having a new website, so they will be available. And if you are a subscriber or you are on my email list, you will be the first to know when those are available. So what are the holograms? What about them? If you don't know that portion or part of my work, when I was diagnosed with a rare incurable cancer, and it's a cancer that's so rare that 1 in 1 million people get it, there was no treatment or protocol for treating it. When I got the phone call that day and the diagnosis, I really almost instantaneously got a message from my guides, from Source, that told me where to focus and what to focus on in order to heal it. And I did just that in just about under 2 months. When they cut my head open, the cancer was gone. They couldn't find it. And so what happened in that process is that I sat in stillness and meditation for several hours a day, about 5-6 hours a day. I was in stillness and meditation. I was also chanting mantras. During that time, I began to channel and see these holographic images of light. And they kind of became my best friends, right? Like they became, at first, I wasn't sure what they were. And then each day over time, over that 2 months, it became more and more clear to me. I was led and guided to use them in all of my work and all of my healings. And what I came to understand was that they were really sent from intelligent substance from the field. And they were to be used not just for myself and my own healing, but what they really were is, again, a recalibration of energies that they were to be used in my work. And I have used them ever since that day, especially when we do the mantra and meditation sessions. I use them in my Awaken, Align, and Embody programs with clients as part of it is coaching, part of it is doing healing work. And it's to help recalibrate to their highest soul frequency. It's our soul energy signature, right? Each of us has our unique energy signature. These are from the field to help us become in alignment to source frequency, source energy. So I've used these same 4 or 5 that I channeled when I was in the stage of healing the cancer, and I had not received any new holograms, new grids of light since that time until recently when I had COVID. It was really just prior to finding out that I had COVID. Now, why is that significant? Well, first of all, one of them is very clearly for global healing for the collective, and inherent in this hologram is the balancing of the left and the right, the male and the female energies. And it's not just left and right of the physical body, it's left and right of our politics, of everything that is global energy right now. and a balancing between the patriarch and the divine feminine, a rebalancing on both an internal individual level and an external collective level. So I'm very, very excited about these new holograms. The other one is, I have not really put it into words yet to explain what it is, but I will spend some time with that in the next few weeks or few months to bring it into a guided experience for everyone. So what I've noticed about the holograms in general is their effectiveness at helping to move old patterns of energy that are buried deep within the unconscious or the subconscious energy and mind. And the seat of the subconscious is not actually in our head and in our brain. It's actually in our high heart. And so the first holograms from years back, not these two new ones, but the first ones, they were for changing this pattern and these frequencies in our subconscious mind and in our high heart. We have had, as a culture, as a frequency in our culture, trauma and codependency. And we are finally now beginning to move out of that. In other words, all of these core wounds that we have been operating and functioning from are beginning to come to the surface, to be relinquished and released. And the patterns that went along with them from how many generations, like years and years of ancestral patterns and generations, the holograms are releasing those in the work that I've seen with clients. And so many people right now collectively are accepting and stepping into releasing this frequency of trauma that we have had and this codependency that's been stuck in our karmic layers for so many decades now on Earth. When you think about it, right, like when we were very little and we were infants, we depended on our caregivers. For most of us, it's our parents to meet our needs, to take care of us. The old paradigm was that we had forgotten and disconnected from the truth that we are, from God, source, intelligent substance, whatever it is you call it. We had disconnected and forgotten our eternal sovereign self and energy, and that we were here for good. We were immersed in this trauma, codependent energy, and we were disconnected from the truth. We did not know that our soul was always continuously being supported by a higher consciousness and frequency. How could we? Because all we learned was to be dependent on someone. We were relying on something outside of ourselves to meet our needs. And then along came, religion, and that made it even worse, right? More shame, more guilt, more we're going to hell in a handbasket. Well, this is all changing now. That's what this recalibration is about, these waking ups, the waking up part, the shift, the new energy, is that we are waking up from the fact that everything to the external, that everything we need is, believing that everything we need is outside ourselves. And it is instead, now we're finding it inside. And we have the ability to transform that internal frequency at command, on command. We can change that internal frequency to match the frequency of the field of intelligent substance for what it is, our soul's destiny, what it is we came here to do. And quite honestly, it's not some big mystery. Like, it's already here. It's already in us. We've just been plugged into believing that we don't know what it is, but it's in our hearts. And our heart will actually tell us, our desires will tell us exactly and point us in the direction of what that is. And so now with this shift, with this recalibration, we can rely on intelligent substance and the field and the frequency and resonance with it to be fully supported and feel safe and secure in our lives. And what we've really seen happen during these last 2 years is a shift in power from relying on a false sense of security, where we've come to look for safety outside ourselves. I'm seeing it more and more than ever before. People are migrating to their self-sufficient sovereign power. Look at what they're calling the Great Resignation, right? That's huge. And it's just one of many examples of the positive shifts that are coming out of the last 2 years. Okay, so your takeaway from this episode, take a look at what you're focusing on, what you're putting your attention on in the areas of your life where you're trying to create change. Are you putting your attention on the problem, or are you looking inside yourself for your greatness? Are you focusing on how to fix the problem? And if you've been doing that, I'm going to suggest that you begin to make a shift over to focusing on who and what would I be? What would I be focusing on if I was living as the highest and best version of myself? Where would you put your attention? Instead of putting your attention on the problem, if the problem was gone, what would you be creating on the other side of the problem? Who would you be? How would you be showing up each day without this problem? And what would it take for you to step into that now, today? Those are your takeaways. I want you to spend some time, get yourself a notebook and a journal, and ask yourself those questions and write it down. There's something that happens as you write. So it's like Wayne Dyer used to say, change the way you look at things, and the things that you look at change. So thanks for being with me on the podcast and listening to this episode. My mission, passion, and intention is to help as many people as possible to create change and transformation in their lives, to spread the message of how we can live fully embodied as our highest and best selves. I am so deeply grateful for all the help that I have gotten along the way. We are all here to help and support creating a better world. If you know a friend or a family member that would benefit from listening to this podcast, please share it with them. And you can help me reach more people by leaving a review for the Place to Be Free podcast over on Apple Podcasts. And that way it will show up in more and more places. So in the next episode, I am going to be talking about and teaching about the 5-step methodology that I have used repeatedly in my own life to create change and transformation. It's really a blueprint and a roadmap. I have taught it to all of my clients over the last two and a half decades. It will help you create change in any area of your life. So I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of the Place to Be Free podcast. Thanks for listening to the Place to Be Free podcast. And if you liked what you heard and you want to know more, go to marthablessing.com/free stuff.